for people that don't know, people that haven't heard me say this, CALMA was like 5 or 6 years in the making already, and originally this idea, I was like, I have this idea, blah blah, and I wanted us to do it together. So Natalia is actually the original CALMA, what would have been CALMA at the time, like co-creator back in our day. So that's awesome. So I'm glad that you were part of the journey, and I'm glad that you're here.
I'm here, and I'm excited.
Cheers.
Thank you for inviting me. Just seeing your trajectory. I think this is el episodio número 5.
Creo, sí.
5,
sí.
Impresionante. Creo que es el primero de muchos.
Ojalá, sí. Y sí, en ese entonces, pues sacamos foto. We did a photo shoot, which we'll put up here. But because it was so funny.
It was real.
No, it was real. It was so funny because Natalia is so much taller than me. I'm 5'2". I'm like super short. And so we had to like figure out how to position ourselves and everything. But I think we did well. I'll put a picture up.
Yeah.
But anyway, now you're here.
And we're literally here in the same city.
Literally.
Boston.
Yeah.
Esto como unas trayectorias muy paralelas que hemos llevado y que pues admiración total por lo que estás haciendo. I just want to say this will be a bilingual episode.
Yes. That's the vibe.
Eso me gusta, como siempre ha sido.
Sí.
Siempre hemos estado.
Siempre tú y yo hablamos así.
Ha sido bien lindo porque es que como nuestras vidas han sido tan paralelas para los que no conocen.
Justo hasta tenemos el mismo cumpleaños,
sí, el mismo día de cumpleaños, nacimos en la misma hora.
Ay, no.
Mentira.
I was like, oh wait, when did we figure that out?
I was almost midnight.
Oh no, yo estaba en la mañana.
Okay.
Sale el día.
So that's why, you're very...
Our personalities too. I'm very like, let's get this going. That's why we also, I think, like we make such a good team. But anyway, I digress. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Nací en Río Piedras, Puerto Rico. Soy the daughter of an immigrant Colombian father, and I guess I'm a little bit like I identify as bicultural and bilingual, of course, like social worker. That's my background.
Yeah.
Of course, we met doing a PhD.
Yes.
And we worked on our very first research project together.
Yes, we did. With Elena.
And with Elena.
Shout out to Elena.
Let's not share more, but technically, so I got very passionate about doing research for our Latino communities, and this was all influenced by my clinical experiences both in Puerto Rico and Arizona where I lived and worked. Pero en Puerto Rico sí, viví toda mi vida. Hace 10 años me mudé a Estados Unidos a perseguir, ¿verdad?, estos sueños académicos y de investigación.
¿Y qué te llevó a ser, qué te interesó primeramente a ser social worker? Did anything influence you from back home, or what brought you to that?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. I think in Puerto Rico, everyone that grows up there, like you are kind of almost, and you are responsible of your community. Entonces, desde pequeña crecí con mucha responsabilidad social y bueno, para los que son de Puerto Rico o conocen los puertorriqueños, todos los años siempre experimentamos un huracán que en ese hurricane season we have to really get ready and prepare, and my parents were very much like, let's just like help our communities before, during, and after. And I personally felt like since I was a very little kid, always passionate about helping others, but my mom was always like instilling in me this desire or invitation to protest and like attend like protestas. En la universidad participé de movimientos estudiantiles, entonces that really motivated me to just not become a social worker to help people, but also to change the systems that are keeping, that
oppressive,
are creating inequities in health, and now we're here, right? Like I'm currently an instructor in the Department of Psychiatry at Harvard Medical School. I mostly do research and at times clinical work with older adults and people who have chronic pain and chronic conditions. We do mind-body interventions.
Tu trabajo todavía es entre latinos, ¿verdad?
Totalmente enfocado en latinos, y eso es lo que me motiva a hacer este trabajo.
Yeah.
Entonces aquí estoy.
So today what I want to talk about is bringing in some of that social justice framework as two mental health professionals, sort of like what our take is on how to navigate so much heaviness and how to protect our humanity during this time. But yeah, so I want to start a little bit about what is joy, just in a broader sense. When you think about joy, what comes to your mind?
That's a really good question. The first thing that comes to mind is just being around people. Alegría, emoción, fiesta, experiencias que me hacen sonreír y obviamente joy during these difficult times and being academics, right? Like joy sometimes look different. It's just more low key, you know.
Yeah, could be.
Un cafecito en la mañana, estar tranquila, caminar y observar la naturaleza. I do find joy in little things, but certainly it's heavy. These days, it's kind of a really hard emotion to experience.
Yeah.
I would say that, you know, other emotions are more present, and certainly joy gets overtaken or minimized. La ansiedad, el enojo que existe, la tristeza, ciertamente son otras emociones que están más prevalentes.
Sí, en estos días, sí. But it's true. I feel like the other day we were kind of talking about this, and I thought to myself that what comes to my mind whenever I think about joy, and it's certain people's faces, and it's a lot of being in community. It's a lot of being around my friends and my family, and I hear music and I see dancing, and you and I love to dance, and a lot of times it is that. And so I thought it was just such a nice little exercise if anybody that's listening also wants to try that. When you think about joy, what comes to your mind? Who comes to your mind? Where are you in these scenarios? Are you outside? Are you inside? And even the micro moments of joy too that are so special. When you're reading a book, who's around you? So it's just nice because then you get an image of the things that maybe you want to put more in your life, especially when things are heavy. So it was a nice conversation we had the other day. But we also talked about these kind of rapid transitions that we're doing between all of the heaviness that we're feeling in the world, everything there's so much trauma, even traumatic experiences that we have at the tips of our fingers through our phone. And a lot of us still need to go day to day and keep functioning, and it's really, really hard. So how have you noticed the heaviness come into your life, whether that's professionally or personally?
Yeah, that's certainly very common. I feel that very deeply at work, that people are transitioning very quickly into just pretending that things are fine or that things are okay, and with, you know, they seem happy. And I must say that with everything that is happening in this context, in this time of the year, there's absolutely no joy in the wars, in the immigration rates, and everything that is happening to our community. So certainly I find that really hard to move away from, and yet we have to, as a way to keep our work, our
pay rent,
productivity. So certainly I don't judge the transition that people do very quickly. Certainly something to think about.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I feel like there was a time there where it was really difficult for me to make that transition, and I just felt it really strongly. So I'll share a story of mine. When I was noticing just a lot of information on my Instagram, I think the raids were happening very prevalently in Minnesota at the time. So every morning I would see this, and it was just really difficult to know what to do with it. And again, the expectation that you go to work, you hop on a Zoom call, and people ask you about your weekend. And at a time where I wanted to just say I feel miserable and this is happening and blah blah blah, and I don't know what the point of this meeting is right now in the midst of all this chaos, but instead we answer for work. Great. How was your weekend? You know, and it just, over time, that sort of like disconnect just kept rubbing against like one and the other, and it was so uncomfortable for me. So I would come back home and I would feel just this complete heaviness and anger and irritability, and on one side, instead of reaching out, which it's wild because as a psychologist I would say, what are your tools? Reach out to your community, blah blah blah. But it is really hard sometimes, and I think there's things that complicate it. For me, I didn't want to be a burden to others. I didn't want to reach out to my friends who maybe were having a hard day themselves with everything and make it worse. To say like, hey, I'm really sad right now and I don't know what to do with that, but that's it. Bye, you know? And so I just kept holding it in and didn't feel any joy for a while. And I came home one night and I just threw all my stuff and I just kind of broke down in my room and said, okay, fuck it, I'm gonna just cry. And I remember just really letting everything out and crying as if I hadn't in a while. And I just like put my hand to my heart, which I find really helps me kind of connect back to my body, and just saying I'm really, really sad. And I feel so much sadness for my community. And it was a healing moment. It's, again, it sounds really simple, but if I didn't allow myself to feel the grief, to feel that sadness, I wouldn't have been able to feel what I felt after, which was actually a huge weight off of my shoulders, relief, a little bit, maybe not joy, but at least being open to something joyful. And all that to say, sometimes joy feels so inaccessible because we need to experience other emotions first that we're really pushing away. For me, I didn't want to feel that level of sadness, that grief, that anger. I was pushing it so far down that I was also blocking myself off from feeling any other emotions that could come in after.
Wow.
It was a lot.
No, suena bien heavy. Creo que me hiciste pensar en cómo yo a veces también me privo de disfrutar o de sentir esa experiencia. Joy is so important, like even in little things, right? We're saying, pero escucho entre mis amigos o con yo misma diciéndome, ¿verdad? No pienso celebrar, I won't have joy or celebration until I get done with this project.
That's so common in our field too.
There's just like this expectation that we put in almost like a condition. We're conditioning joy to certain outcomes, every little moment, right? Like, and instead of like just
putting it
off or just setting it as a goal or something that must be earned, right? That's where, and maybe we're not that well. Maybe we're just okay, and let's just have the joy that we are okay, that we are feeling something. And so I loved how you talk about cuando lo soltaste fue cuando verdaderamente sentiste un alivio.
Sí. Y es complicado, o sea, sentir alegría es complicado. Justo se me viene a la mente un participante mío de un estudio que hice hace unos años, que yo les pregunté a ellos de todas estas emociones que estamos aprendiendo, ¿cuáles son unos de los más difíciles? Y yo estaba preparada a que me dijeran, ok, tristeza, soledad, enojo, algo, eso se me hace difícil. Pero dijo, alegría. Y yo me quedé como, wow. Pero, ¿qué? And I was like, okay, can you tell me more? Dijo, pues sí, o sea, para mí, yo he tenido una vida muy difícil, entonces cuando yo empiezo a sentir esa alegría o esperanza de un modo, para mí como que lo rechazo, mi cuerpo lo rechaza. Yo no quiero sentir eso porque yo sé que se me va a ir. So it's complicated because a lot of us, we were in such a difficult time of life that feeling happiness, feeling hope feels unsafe, feels dangerous, feels like uncomfortable, and we don't want to feel that. So joy as we're talking about, is very complex. And it really matters to not take it as to not, como no engancharnos tanto con tengo que sentir esto, tengo que sentir alegría, tengo. It comes and goes, it flows, and our relationship with joy is it changes over time. At this point, we're talking about vicarious trauma, which is trauma that might not happen to you directly or to a person that's next to you, but it's trauma that you're still seeing consistently, and it could be through our phones, which is what a lot of times it does happen, or you hear about it. And so all of this, even though we might not think it, this constant influx of information affects our body in the same way that seeing a trauma in person might. So we do need to pay attention to how much information we're taking in.
What about you? Yeah, as a psychologist, you know a lot about, these stress responses.
Yeah, I think the way that I've seen them, I've sort of seen them fall in the pattern of our stress response system. And on one side, we might have the fight response, which is where a lot of this anxiety, we see a lot of this anxiety in gathering all this information and wanting to be up to date on absolutely everything. Then on the other side, maybe we have the freeze response, where it comes in this emotional numbing, where people want to completely disassociate because it's just too intense. So these two responses are completely in line with what it is to face a traumatic experience, which is why I made the point earlier that even if we're seeing these things on our phone or we might be hearing about them, exposure to horrific things such as what we're seeing take place around the world is trauma. And our body's going to react in that exact same way. So either way you find yourself reacting, I think the best thing we can do is just take note of that and not judge it. I know a lot of it is might be some judgment on, well, this person doesn't want to know this or that, but I want to lend the psychological lens of that is a very human reaction to stress. So what can help us here, and I see these as two extremes. So I think whether you're in the anxious cycle here or you're in a completely disassociative, neither of these extremes are going to help us. What would help us is trying to take note of this and find a balance between the two. Nobody can survive only taking in all this information. It's just not sustainable. As you see, I broke down in my room and had to process it because I was this person. I took in all this information. On the other side, emotional numbing is also not sustainable because not only are you disconnecting from this information, but you're disconnecting from the world, from your life, from life itself, not being present. And like you said, disconnecting in one area of your life tends to lead you to have that same learned behavior in other parts of your life, whether that's your relationship or time with other people. So either way, I think the key is to notice where you're at and to find a balance that disrupts, if you're in a cycle of it, to disrupt that cycle, which is, I think, where being open to joy and processing your feelings is a great outlet to disrupt that.
Yeah, so that's one thing I've seen, how people are really experiencing all these emotions at the same time. And just like finding that balance and that comfort.
It really is such a mix. And I think that's also what makes so much information and so much that's happening. It's a mix of emotions. It's hard to figure out how they coexist. And I think this is a time where we are I'm inviting people to expand a little bit, because there is a psychological importance to feeling or being open to joy, even in the midst of, as you're saying, a really difficult time of life, time in the world, or in this a chronic condition. But that overall, it's kind of expanding our ability to hold both. You can hold grief and notice moments of joy in life. You can be a caregiver and have it be very difficult, and then there's a smile on your loved one's face, and in that moment, you're feeling
it changes,
relief, or you're feeling happiness, or whatever it is. So it is, and what we're talking about here is the dialectics. We have these emotions that don't seem to go together, but they do, because we're very complicated humans and we feel a mix of things at the same time. But what do you think is psychologically one of the benefits of feeling joy? Like, what does it do for us?
Well, the absence of joy, imagine, yeah. What is beautiful, que es lindo, and it requires very little financial, like people will think that joy has to be associated with, a trip or an experience, a paid experience, una experiencia que tengan que pagar, pero no, la joy can be just as simple as like taking a walk. Most of people who are working full time and in busy jobs, they're associating joy with an event that they have scheduled on the weekend, or an activity that is planned, and they look forward to that. I love the looking forward to that, but certainly in the here and now. If the weekend will not come, right? What did you?
Hoy?
¿Qué hiciste hoy? Y eso, eso realmente el beneficio es que like you just only have today, and it will be challenging, more challenging than feeling anxious or feeling worried, but joy will have like long ripple positive effects on the body.
I think the benefit of having it psychologically is both physical and mental to me, because physically, again, when you're in a trauma, you're seeing various traumas day to day. What joy does for you, even, I think especially, you want to pay attention to the micro moments, because if the larger things are not doing well, if our larger life is not doing well, our political life, the world, etc., then I think the key is to focus on micro moments of joy and to see how those build up in your day. And I see, like, to this point where if the weekend doesn't happen again, what did you do with today? So I think there's the key to kind of break up some of the physical strain that we have on our body by experiencing so much trauma stored within our body. So that allows us to kind of take a breather. We walk outside, just the physical relief in these tiny moments and these tiny practices.
I love that. There's in research lately, there has been a lot of work at investigating positive experiences. Positive experiences in childhood, in adulthood, and they have been investigated as like protective factors for long-term, like the prevention of like long-term chronic conditions. And so
conoces a gente que te ayudan durante momentos difíciles y tú también puedes aportar eso para tus amistades. O sea, todo ayuda. Hay beneficios físicos y mentales. Y yo lo veo tanto en nuestra comunidad también, que the joy está alineado con las fiestas, la comunidad, nuestra música. O sea, para ti también viviendo en Puerto Rico, pero también tienes tu comunidad aquí que está amazing. ¿Cómo ves el joy en nuestra comunidad latina? ¿Qué crees que es de nuestra comunidad que nos puede ayudar en esos momentos, como conectar a estos aspectos de alegría? ¿Qué son?
Wow, pues mira, en Puerto Rico y aquí también en Estados Unidos, yo admiro mucho la cultura puertorriqueña y los latinos, que a pesar de las dificultades que tenemos y los retos, nosotros nos tiramos a la calle, hacemos fiesta, pero al mismo tiempo we're like fighting for our rights.
Tiramos a la calle por protestas y fiestas.
We're protesting, but you see art, you see poetry, you see like people dancing.
Es un ejemplo de eso.
Es la resistencia, ciertamente. O sea, la música y las expresiones, ¿verdad? El arte que tenemos, la cultura, estamos 100%. Benito definitivamente ha sido uno de muchos ejemplos donde nosotros estamos advocating for our rights through our art. Meaningful art, and music is certainly one of them. So I grew up, en las calles con mi familia protestando y siempre había, no sé, siempre había alguien, una sonrisa, ¿no? Entonces, o sea, a pesar de todas las luchas que hemos tenido,
Yeah.
siempre lo hacemos con mucho ruido y haciendo verdad, o sea, con esa no una discrepancia, pero ciertamente como
Es
con
una
la
coexistencia.
coexistencia de,
Sí.
exacto, de la alegría, la música, o sea,
Con la lucha contra las
con nuestro
injusticias.
cansancio y nuestra frustración. Y sí, entonces aquí en Estados Unidos también vemos como el racismo, la discriminación, todos estos factores. Realmente tenemos que seguir luchando, pero hay que hacerlo estratégicamente y sin drenarnos, porque cuando uno participa en los
Exacto.
movimientos políticos, eso realmente son poco sostenibles porque no, no hay estrategias para mantener, ¿verdad? La emoción o
Sí, a ese
la
nivel
esperanza, ¿verdad?
tanto.
Uno pierde la esperanza casi.
Exacto.
Pero pues eso yo creo que sí, que la cultura latina tenemos, ¿verdad? Nos consideran, qué sé yo, las personas más felices del mundo, yo creo. Pero es
Yeah,
porque sabemos.
it's amazing. Sí, tener como buscaros e igual tener esa puerta abierta a la alegría, con o sin todas las experiencias que tenemos, con o sin
Correcto,
la experiencia de discriminación, etcétera.
correcto.
Pero es muy bonito ser latino, es muy bonito aprender también de nuestra cultura, porque es esa coexistencia entre I'm going to be present no matter what's in front of me. I'm present in the joy, I'm present in the fight, I'm present in the resistance, I'm present with my friend. Y es todo, eso es tan bonito de nuestra comunidad porque nos fluimos entre todas estas cosas. Y es justo también algo que estoy aprendiendo, que aprendo de nuestra cultura, es que hacemos todo en familia. Tener enfrente de nosotros cualquier dificultad, yo sé que la clave para enfrentarlo es que no lo voy a hacer sola.
Correcto.
We do things and we confront challenges and we navigate the heaviness of the world with others. And when we do it with others and we do it in community, we are the most powerful. And I think that's something that we learn from our Latino community, is that we're always family, first and foremost. And I think it's a beautiful thing to keep promoting, because that's when we're the strongest. And that's how CALMA was born too. Is this idea that we're not alone, that this is a platform where all of us are united and all of us are learning and enjoying company, and that's really when we can find the most resilience. And I think joy is a function of that. It is like healing within the body. ¿Cómo tú personalmente proteges?
Proteges. No.
Gracias. ¿Proteges tu alegría en estos días?
It's just to be more aware of the things that are going well and being grateful. En la gratitud, la apreciación, ¿verdad? Es algo crítico también. Como últimamente he estado tomando nota de las cosas que he logrado, lo que he alcanzado. Eso, pues, a mí me ayuda.
Yeah.
Obviamente, cada
¿Eso
cual.
lo haces todos los días? ¿Es una práctica?
No,
Okay.
realmente, pero en momentos donde siento como me siento overwhelmed con todo, con la incertidumbre, con la ansiedad, el miedo, empiezo a darme espacio como para, okay, wait, let me just start thinking about what I've accomplished, what am I grateful for, and what are the things that I am looking forward to. Ciertamente tengo que trabajar con eso. Actually, like, be more intentional about like a daily activity, like a daily como
Like a routine of some sort?
como de agradecimiento. Pero pues yo creo que lo más también que me ha ayudado bastante es vivir una vida más activa físicamente, porque pues verdad sabemos que ante estos ciclos que desarrollamos, ¿verdad? El avoidance o el anxious, ¿verdad? Response to trauma and everything. I would say that for me, being physically active and being, making sure that I get my steps
Yeah.
every
To
day.
move the
That's
body.
definitely my
Let's do
everyday, just like the goal of like getting my steps in, of
Yeah.
going to a yoga class, doing a workout. And I'm very intentional. I message my friends to run together, to do yoga or Pilates together. So that certainly I am holding myself accountable to these activities that are meaningful, that bring joy, but are certainly very hard to
Get there.
Get
Yeah.
there. The process to get there.
Yeah.
But so I use the resources, which is like my community and the people around me, to just not do it alone. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting too, because your go-to is very community-based and how you're protecting that. And I'm thinking to myself, mine are so individual. Like mine are micro.
Beautiful. And
it's
that's okay.
funny. It's funny because you're social work, and so you look at your work is more macro, and I'm psychology, so mine's very like the individual.
But see, that's so important.
Honestly, letting myself grieve that one day, that really opened a lot of doors for me, because then I started to reach out to people. So one, I would say, if you feel like your chest is tight, so again, our bodies tell us a lot first before we realize mentally what might be going on. If you notice a tightness in your chest, just a heaviness overall in your body, irritability, it might be that you need to process some sort of grief. Could be anger, could be, but there's an emotion that's getting stuck in the body. So one, I would say, just kind of be aware more of how you're feeling physically. And then two, I've been really focused on my routines around the morning and around my evening.
Okay.
Because I realize that when I wake up, number one, we naturally have a shot of cortisol, which is our stress hormone, that immediately helps us wake up in the morning.
Yes.
So great, we love it. At the same time, when you're constantly in a flux of like, I see so much horrible things on my phone, then when I wake up with that adrenaline rush, I feel panic.
Wow.
I feel like, what do I have to do for work? What do I need to do for this? Blah, 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 blah. I'm thinking about my deadlines. It's not fun. So what you can do is protect your morning and evening routines and really set a routine around it. Whatever it is, the hour before you're going to bed, whatever makes sense to you, that hour, I would say, be more intentional about what you're doing and make it, as much as you can, the same thing every night. Whatever relaxes you, that last hour, be very protective of your sleep, of yourself.
This
kind of
is
recharge.
For another episode. You really have to bring in sleep hygiene.
Sleep is huge.
But it also, and I love how joy is, part of like that sleep hygiene that you have.
It is. And then in the morning, what I've done is, again, protect that first hour if I'm waking up. Again, as much as I can. I'm a girl that loves to run late. So as much as I can, I will do, when I wake up, I try not to go straight to Instagram, but instead I'll open YouTube and put on morning affirmations, which is something that I used to think was really lame. Again, as a psychologist, it's crazy how much judgment comes in just naturally as a human. But they're really helpful. And so that's what I hear in the mornings, these affirmations. If I don't play that, I do my own. What am I grateful for? Then finally I wake up and I do some sort of physical exercise. I do jumping jacks just in my room. That's it. I
Get
drink
it done,
water.
yeah.
I drink my water and then I start to play some music that makes me happy. That's my routine. It's really not
and
that...
coffee.
Oh, and coffee. I make my coffee, and it's so interesting how you'll notice if you do this in time, once you start enacting the chain of events, your brain sort of like relaxes. Why is that? Because it's sort of like, I already know what's going to happen next. So in this hour or in these 30 minutes you've protected, your brain already knows what's going to happen. So it can really take a nice and relaxed state as like, I know my coffee's coming, I know I got to do this, I know I got to do that. And it really, really helps you. Routine helps because it lowers our anxiety around what's going to happen next, which we're feeling as soon as we walk out of the door. So if we can protect it beforehand, great. I think that's been a big key. I was actually telling my therapist that the other day because I said, these mornings have been so hard for me. And I keep having the same types of thoughts. And it's part of when I'm brushing my teeth, I'm like, these types of thoughts. And she was like, well, first of all, she's noticed just a lot of more hyper-awareness tension in her clients, patients overall because of everything that's happening. Like, it's not just a few people, it's so many people. And then number two, she was like, well, maybe stop fighting having those thoughts. And as we know that as diffusion, right? You stop fighting the thoughts and you're like, okay, I'm having these thoughts again. I'm actually not going to fight them because they're going to be here either way. You can't actually control a lot of the thoughts that you have. You're just like, they pass. So if I stop fighting them so much and I just allow them to be, so I've tried that this week, and it's, again, something that I know works. But when I actually put it into practice, I was like, wow, that really works. And it's something we tell people to do, and yet, but it was helpful.
And yeah, that sort of like acknowledging, and for me, big one, distraction too, like just being very intentional to do something that is meaningful and that will be will allow space for something else. That's like trying to find something, 1 or 2, 3 things that bring joy to our lives, and just pursuing. I certainly think that we need to open the door, but also make sure we pursue these joyful moments, because it's very easy to just say, I will let it for tomorrow. Me voy a acostar y ya no voy a hacer nada por sentirme feliz. And that could be just sending a message to someone, and just there's so many ways we can experience joy. It's just we have to get creative.
Yeah, and they're small. It doesn't have to be these big things, but small micro moments.
Qué lindo.
That's the key. Yeah. Pues nada, gracias. Gracias
ti,
por estar aquí.
Qué bueno, este es el primero de muchos.
Yeah, ojalá sí.
Salud,
Cheers.
Angie.
Okay.